What's going on, everybody? Sean Pierce Johnson here. It's Winter NAMM 2018, and I have the intense, amazing honor of sitting here with the founder of Orange Amplifiers, Mr. Cliff Cooper. Cliff, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Yeah, no, great. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. So as everybody watching my channel knows, I am a huge Orange Amps fan. I've played a Rocker Verb 100 for... wow, it's been a 10-year anniversary for me of being an Orange player. And when I found that amplifier, I found my voice. Much like your company's tagline, Voice of the World, I found my musical voice. And you guys are celebrating a huge milestone this year in 50 years. And the first thing I have to ask you is, after all this time, how does it feel like you've reached that 50-year milestone? That's got to feel really good.
Yeah, it was. It's a strange feeling, you know. I think last year, you know, it's 49 years and you carry on. And then when the 50 years hits you, you know, you start regressing and thinking back. Yeah. And it's gone so quick. Yeah. You know, when we first started in 1968, we had a small shop, painted it orange, and it was my favourite colour. Okay. And nobody had supply us in those days. You know, the bigger companies, they wouldn't supply a little shop. And so we started selling second-hand amplifiers and speakers and guitars, and then we decided to make our own amplifier. We had so many requests for people wanting to buy amplifiers, and so we made one and called it Orange. And we were lucky, I suppose, because the first band to use it was Fleetwood Mac, Peter Green. Wow. And I love his guitar, you know, he's a great guitarist. I couldn't believe it. And anyway, they recorded Albatross, went to #1.
So Albatross was recorded on an Orange?
Yeah. Wow. And then they went to America to promote it, and they took the amps with them. And that really helped. And we were lucky, the next people that came along, it was Stevie Wonder. And I just couldn't believe it. You know, he used our studio, we had a little studio downstairs, and he recorded Superstition on Orange. So, and in fact, he's I believe he's here today. He may come on the stand. He usually comes on to see us. He's such a lovely man.
I always know where to find him at the NAMM show. Yeah. And I always end up finding him here. He always stops by Orange to say his hellos.
I have to say, he's one of the kindest, nicest people I've ever met. He's a lovely person. And he remembers those days when, in the early days, I think it's about 1969 when he first came to the studio, and he used that. Of course, when Stevie used it, that was it. But we couldn't get them made, you know, quick enough. It was... we had orders coming from everywhere. But after a while, it took time, but now, of course, 50 years later, as I say, we regress. We're a global company with all over the world, and I just can't believe it. I never ever thought in those early days having a shop that we'd ever do like this, and I feel really proud. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, and I can only imagine. You know, for me and my perspective, growing up in that late '90s, early 2000s was really me coming of age. At the time, the bands that I were getting into, you know, they were playing, you know, different brands of amplifiers with a certain type of sound. And when I would go to play those amplifiers as a teenager, and then as I got older and going to find, you know, the sound that I would want to make the music that I wanted to make, there was something about those bands that were inspiring me, but the guitar tones that I would go for, I could never get. And I had no idea why. And a lot of the bands that were on the fringe of what I listened to, they were all playing Orange. I loved bands like At the Drive-In, with Omar playing his, you know, 8140. I loved hearing the Britpop of Oasis and wondering, like, how would I get... This isn't really the music that I want to write, but there's something about that guitar tone that's just so distinctive, and I want a distinctive sound. And then all of a sudden, here comes Jim Root playing a Rocker Verb, and I'm thinking, well, there's a heavy style of music. I want to play a heavy style of music. Maybe I need to look at that amp. Lo and behold, walk into True Tone Music in Santa Monica. How's that for a plug? And they're not paying for that one. Walk in there with my guitar, plug into a Rocker Verb, and lo and behold, there it was, right there for me. So I can't thank you enough.
I can't thank you enough for using it and for the kind things you said. It's really... really kind of you. Thank you.
There's 3 things in life that people who know me are certain: that one day I'll die, every year I have to pay my taxes, and that I bleed orange amplifiers.
Oh my God. That's really kind of you. I don't know what to say. No, thank you. I mean, with the sound of an amplifier, I'm a bad guitarist, but when you play an amplifier and you know that's right, your whole body you can just feel it, can't you? And we worked on the circuitry until you get that feel that you become part of your guitar and your amplifier, the part of that sound. And we try to keep the amplifier simple to use.
Yeah.
The less, well, I call it nonsense you have between your guitar and the speaker, the better.
Yeah.
Because whatever you do in the circuitry, the more you bend it and shape it, the more it loses that sound.
Yeah.
And so we try to keep it simple. And the other thing is our output transformers. Whereas I think most companies use 3 windings on the output transformer, we use 5 on the smaller ones and 8 on the others. And the reason for that is it costs a lot more. They're expensive as a transformer, but what it does, in the output stage you get what they call transients. And transients are really high pitch, which you can't hear. They're high pitch pulses that build up in the secondary of the transformer. And what happens is they get back into the primary, but they come back out of phase. And what it does, it cancels a lot of the sound in the output transformer, and it makes it not so nice, yeah. And so with the transformers, that's important for us as well. But I think simple circuitry, output transformer has to be the right one, and the right laminations in between the transformer, which is very important. And I think once we got that sound, we've always tried to keep that sound all the way through and true to that. That's what we do with our amps. So.
I mean, I think after all this time, you guys certainly have carved out your own sonic space when it comes to amplifiers, that you can tell that there's an orange sound. A lot of, from my perspective of being of the younger generation coming in and playing the amplifiers, and especially getting into it as the company was resurging with especially with the Tiny Terror, that was really my first introduction to the brand. And then going back and discovering older users of it, it just seems like I can pick out the sound now, whereas other amplifier companies, I feel like they're trying to do what some of your colleagues or competitors from back when you first started were doing, and they're just taking that and doing the exact same thing. But somehow you were able to do what other manufacturers weren't doing, and that was find a sound that was all your own and make it work.
Yeah. Well, that's what we aim to do. There's other things that contribute to the sound. When you have a resistor, I don't want to get technical because it's...
We can get as technical as you want.
No, okay. But if you have a resistor and various resistors, they need to be what they call high stability, high stab resistors, which means they're accurate. Their tolerance is probably plus or minus 2%. If you use a cheaper resistor, or indeed capacitors, it leaves room for error. And I think when that sound is travelling through the circuitry, it needs to stay on course. And again, that's really important as well. It's the quality of the components inside. You can't really cheapen an amp. It's a great saying, a chain's as strong as its weakest link. So you can do everything right and you put a wrong resistor in and it goes. So getting every component correct, I think that's really important as well. But I was just going to say that when we try new amplifiers, I'm not the final person but I always try our new amplifiers, and when I play it, I get that shiver. I just know that's the sound, and I don't know what it is. We play and you just feel it, and for me, that's the test. So
if it gives you some sort of emotional response where it tugs at all the heartstrings.
Parts, yeah.
I know exactly that feeling.
I hope you don't think it sounds corny, but it's really the way and it's not just the sound, it's the feel of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's why every amp that we produce, I always give it that little test.
Well, that's nice to know that you do that, because it's 50 years, and yet you still feel the need that whenever a new amplifier comes out, you have to feel something from it. Because and it's not corny at all. Like being a
Laugh when I say, but it's true. I really mean it.
I mean, being a songwriter and being a musician myself, it's like you write a song and it's a part of you. But then when you go to perform that song, you have to be able to convey it to an audience in a way and with a sound that is going to... I always equate it to Jeff Buckley's version of Hallelujah. You can hear a lot of emotion, and you can hear every bit of his soul dripping out of that song. And that's how I feel with the music that I write, is that when I play these songs, and people hear these songs, I want them to feel what I'm feeling. And it's not corny at all for you to say that if you don't feel something from the amplifiers that your company is putting out, you're probably going to put the kibosh on it.
Okay, yeah. I'm glad. Thank you for that.
No, I would hope that other people would do that and have as much emotional investment in their business as you do, because that is a big thing for me. And I think that's what has gravitated me as a player to want to be continually associated with your brand, from whatever I do on this crazy YouTube journey that I've decided to do to, Alex has been a friend of mine for many, many years, and he's asked me, hey, we need a video shoot done in Los Angeles in 3 days. Can you do it? And I say, I will gladly do it. I would be honored to do it. Of course I would do it. You should have just asked me like the day before.
Okay.
I'll stop. Everybody who knows me, I'll stop on a dime for an Orange amplifier.
Really?
That's me. That's me right there. That's my musical identity.
Well, all I can say, when you say it makes me feel very proud.
I will continue to champion the brand for as long as I possibly can, and as long as I feel like my voice comes through your amplifiers, I will be doing that.
You're very kind. Thank you very much.
So now, looking ahead, you've gone. Let's not look in the past of the 50 years. Let's look ahead to the next. Where do you see Orange? Maybe even just next year or 5 years from now. Do you even want to think that far ahead?
That's really difficult, because with the new technology coming out now, modelling. I listen to modelling amps, and I just don't think it's right yet. It just doesn't sound right. If it sounded right, we'd do a modelling amp. But right now, analog. I don't think that is, digital and analog. I don't think there's still not any comparison. Analog is absolutely. It just sounds right. The digital things just. It's not fair to say it's a fake sound, but sometimes I feel it is.
It's that 5 to 10% difference that
Right, yeah. But I think so. With modelling, we probably won't do modelling until we feel it's right. There's all sorts of amplifiers sometimes go in, sort of cycles. So right now, people like little small amplifiers for practicing at home. The very big amplifiers, the 200 watt, apart from the bass amps, perhaps a little bit too powerful, but 50 watts seems to be a good, the Locker 30 or Locker 32. That sells really well, and it's a good little amp,
Yeah, definitely
But I think with regards to the new models we're bringing out, I think we'll stick to analog. We'll stick to what we do and what we know sounds good, until something comes along where we feel perhaps we should be changing direction a little bit. Yeah. But it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, so. It hasn't happened yet, and that's even with you guys releasing that OMEC amp back in the, what was it, in the 70s, was it?
That was early. That was that was a transistor amplifier, an early one.
And it was a very early example of what that technology could do, and we kind of find that now being a trend, so in some roundabout way, and you guys were sort of a pioneer of that technology.
Absolutely, but I have to say, it didn't sound right.
You went back to what you knew would work.
It didn't sound right. Everybody was doing transistor amplifiers. A lot of them were blowing up. They had what they called thermal runaway. They didn't have protection on the output stages. But we managed to. The Omit one did have a protection circuits, but it didn't really sound. For me, it didn't sound. It didn't give me that tingle. So
Well, I can certainly understand that, and hey, it's nice to know that you acknowledge the existence of new technology that's out there and people are using it, but you're not going to put the investment in to make a product unless you're absolutely certain that it's ready.
Absolutely, until we know the technology is right. I mean, everything is changing, and sometimes we get in our own R&D department. They bring up designs and things, and we discuss it, and we say we'll go ahead and make it, and we try it out, and it's got to sound right at the end of the day. And I think that's what people want. They want to buy an amplifier, and they want to know that it's going to sound as good as it can, to do their guitar justice as well. So that's the future, really. It's very difficult to predict what we're going to do.
The future is hazy, as the lyric goes from one of my band's songs, and we'll just go one day at a time and hope that Orange is here for many, 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 many more years, so that 50 years from now, my kids are playing my amplifiers.
Right. I tell what we are doing is we're doing pedals now, and they sound good.
Yes, they do.
I'm really pleased with the pedals.
Yeah, I got the chance to get the compressor last year, and I've had that ended up being a great secret weapon for my recent recording sessions. It's on maybe about 70% of the guitar tracks that I recorded from my band's most recent record. It's a fantastic tool.
Yeah, no, I'm pleased. I'm really pleased. We've got Fuzzbox, which is all virtually sold. We're back ordered now on that. We didn't expect to get that sort of response, but I'm really pleased with that. Really like the idea of the pedals. So.
Yeah, me too. I love me some pedals, and the fact that you guys are in the game, I am all for it. Cliff, thank you so much for taking the time. It was a tremendous honor.
It's an absolute pleasure, and it was my pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
There you go. Bleeding Orange Amplifiers for 10 years and celebrating 50 years with Cliff Cooper, founder of Orange Amplifiers. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you want to see more from NAMM 2018, you know what to do. Click the subscribe button, and I will see you all real soon. I wish you great tone and happy stomping. Cheers, my friends.